Put my images up on the screen here. Oh, okay, right. So this is from my second trip to Antarctica, which we'll just ignore totally. And then this is the unfolding, the wonderful origami-like unfolding of the JWST. Who was excited by that? I love you very much. The rest of you I love almost as much because besides astronomy, there's also biology and a whole universe of things. Let's just make sure that the system is working properly. Oh my God, it is too. How come I can be so lucky? Right. Okay, so these are actually real headlines. I don't know why. I think, as Atlanta said, we do need critical thinking. Oh, by the way, the world record for not eating is 1 year and 2 weeks. Okay, let's just keep rolling with the show because we've got a lot of room to cover today. Thank you so much for coming here. Now, where's the camera that is filming me? Can you point to it? Oh, they're all over. That one, is it? So where should I keep myself organised so I won't be upsetting the camera too much? Lectern's a great place. Around here-ish? Yeah, sort of about here to about here. Okay, that's my limit. You're gone, man. I love you more than those people. Blame the fascist imperialist oppressors of us honest working class proletariat who made that purely executive decision. Moving right along. So for those who are not familiar with me, I was born at a very early age and then kept on going and then end up in high school. As you can recognise me here as the strong, muscular person in the front row. No, I'm the little runt. I grew tall and then end up having the habit of not only wearing disarmingly high pants, but also just love to piece. I don't know, tucking the jumper. Why is she leaning that way? I don't know. Now, all of this is described in my 48th book, A Science of Memoir, but you don't have to buy it. I still love you very much. So at one stage, I worked at the Steelworks and was involved with testing the steel for a bridge in Melbourne, the Westgate Bridge, that fell down while it was being built. And I found that the steel was not of sufficient strength, and it's sort of complicated. But at that time, I was also doing other things like trying to look like a beatnik. I don't think that really worked very well. I tried to invoke my sort of inner Amish, and that didn't work very well. I got closer to where I truly was when I turned into a drug-crazed, flower-munching hippie. I think I was getting closer there. And then part-time Jesus figure. And in my sort of varied career along the way, accidentally end up setting up Australia's first cable TV network at Nimbin, way back in 1972 or something, and doing the first MTV videos. I had many failures along the way, including trying to build an anti-gravity machine. However, I did end up working at the hospital system, and I suddenly discovered this universe inside the human body. I was so amazed. At one stage, Fred Hollows said, look, I want you to build a machine for me to pick up electrical signals off the human retina to diagnose certain types of eye disease. And 2 years later, I delivered. I also spent a fair bit of time test driving vehicles in the Australian outback, about two and a half decades, and I've crossed 15 of the 17 deserts and spent 2 years sleeping under the stars. And somehow that all came together with me also appearing on the #1 science TV show in the whole world, the Midday Show with Ray Martin. And everything was fine, so long as I stuck to what I knew, but I was still at an early stage in my career. Here I am being patriarchal, thinking, I kind of know stuff, and I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, like I had a bit of arrogance, and it all came to a head one day. So I was normally doing my Friday shows. I'd just go in, leave the kids' hospital where I was working as a medical doctor, duck in, and then duck back out again. And everything was fine, until one day Ray said, look, we'd like you to talk about feminism on Monday. And I said, look, I don't normally do Mondays, but I know nothing about feminism. I've read about it, I've heard about it, I've talked with some people about it. I do not know the theory, the dialectic, the philosophy, or, God help me, even the history of feminism. I know nothing, honestly. And he said, look, you're lucky. I got this book by, what's her name? Germaine Greer, and it was called The Female Eunuch. And look, he said, it's autographed. Read this on the weekend and come back on Monday and it'll be fine. It was not fine on Monday. Firstly, I hadn't read the book because I wanted to go to partying, which I succeeded in doing. Secondly, I wasn't just on for 5 minutes. I was on for the whole show. Thirdly, the whole show wasn't 1.5 hours. It was 2 hours. And fourthly, why was it 2 hours? Because you had every feminist in the known universe, Germaine Greer, Naomi Wolf, Helen Gurley Brown, and me as a token male. And I hadn't read the book. And we rolled into the first segment, and I thought, I'm in deep trouble here. I was clever enough to keep my big mouth shut and my big ears open, and I was sort of absorbing the stuff I should have been doing over the weekend. We went to the first ad break. I said not a single word, and Ray said, you okay, Karl? And to my shame, I admit that I lied, and I said, I'm fine. No, I wasn't fine. And then we rolled into the second segment, and then suddenly something began to bubble up. Okay, now, just a little diversion for you. If you've done live stage work or Q&A on radio and TV or whatever, at some stage you have to bypass the sensor in your brain that stops you from saying stupid shit. And so I had it switched off because we were on live TV. And Ray was looking at me going, come on. And suddenly I could feel something bubbling up. I didn't know what it was, but we were like 30 minutes into the show and I hadn't said a single thing. And so I just rolled with it, or 20 minutes. And I rolled with it and I lifted my finger up, and then Ray said, he threw me a Dorothy Dixer. So, Karl, listening to what I've been hearing today, Karl, what do you think about feminism? And as the camera zoomed in on my face, and I didn't know what I was going to say, and as my face filled 1.5 million TV screens around Australia, to my absolute horror, I heard myself saying, well, you know, Ray, what I'm picking up here is that us blokes, we've got to stop thinking about penile penetration and start thinking about vaginal engulfment. What the heck? Who said that? Was that me? I had never put those two words together in my whole life. I'm very confident they've never been said on TV before or after. Suddenly things went quiet. Now this is really unusual. None of the people on the home stage said anything. The audience was dead quiet. Very unusual because there's always a murmur. And we always have a monitor in the corner that picks up the signal coming off the antenna so we know it's going out to Australia. It went black. You do not go to black if the sponsor's paying $5,000 a second because somebody had hit the black button up in the control room, which is just incredibly rare. And suddenly, up popped an ad for sheep dip, which was the first thing they could find, which was totally irrelevant to the 87% of Australians who live in the 8 festering sores that we call cities. And then the rent-a-cops dragged me off the stage and the switchboard ended up and they said, hey, that was an interesting point of view. And then they dragged me back on again, which was terrible. So I was suffering from a mismatch of knowledge and confidence, something we today call the Dunning-Kruger effect. And over here, down at the bottom, can you put me up on the big screen here? Can you put my images up on the screen? Over here, down at the bottom, you can see knowledge, and up here, you can see confidence. I had zero knowledge, but boy, was I confident. And then as you roll along, you get a bit more of the Dunning-Kruger. There's more to this, and I thought, I'm never going to understand this. It's starting to make sense. Trust me, it's complicated. Finally, you've arrived at a stage after a few hours' work where you think, there's something going on. I've got a hint of what's going on, but I don't fully understand it. I was suffering badly from the Dunning-Kruger effect, and you sometimes see this on TV. Now, we've got a video coming up, so get ready to get the sound coming off the computer. And I'll give you the first words of the video, which are ugly, ugly windmills. Now, come on, give me a break. Oh, hang on, just hitting the off button here because this thing's going bad here. Okay, here we go. So I was interrupted by that thing because I couldn't work out how to switch off. Windmills are powered by the wind and they do this thing called milling. They grind a grain. They don't grind electricity. Your proper name for those things that make electricity is wind turbines. Okay, got that off my chest. And the worst thing is he says that they won't even work. Okay, let's just roll the video here.
Windmills, and the worst part is they won't even work. One problem with these windmills in the sea is that laying the cabling for them around. These are basic technical questions that have not yet been worked out, and that's what
Okay. He did say that the problem is the cabling is very difficult because the currents keep shifting them around, and these are basic technical questions that have not yet been worked out. And he is, our host, 100% correct had he been talking in the year 1839. Because in the year 1840 we solved that problem. And here you can see the cables going across the world in the northern hemisphere with a spur down here into the southern hemisphere and into Australia. And here you can see them putting up the pole to later across. And today the situation is that well over 99.9% of all human communications, voice and data and everything travels via these cables under the sea. And in addition to the problems having been solved there, we also find that the wind turbines are working really well, and already we've got a few of them that by themselves, a single individual wind farm is producing more than 3% of Australia's total electrical demand. And yet our hero says,
these are basic technical questions that have not yet been worked out.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I'm on the road, I'm very lonely because I'm not with my family. On the other hand, I do get mild enjoyment by watching Sky TV. The mild lasts for about 4 minutes before I then start getting angry. But during that time, it's sort of vaguely entertaining. And I've come to a deep and cosmic understanding of Sky TV, which is I think that practically all of the presenters there exhibit a good mix of the Dunning-Kruger effect and Village Idiot. But that's really mean for me because I shouldn't behave like that, because I did spend some time as a part-time Jesus figure and I should have been more forgiving. Now, this is a rather complicated segue, but way back in the past, we had something that almost looked godlike and apocalyptic in its nastiness, which was the Great Fire of London. And this Great Fire of London, man, 1666, and it started out of Thomas Fahrenheit. I'm just going to do something here. Oh, okay, we're back on deck again. And it burnt so many houses that something like 80% of the population was with nowhere to live. They were booted out. And the economic cost was huge, and the heat was so great that not only did it melt lead, it even melted steel. Little diversion here. People say kerosene doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel, as in the Twin Towers. Firstly, you don't have to melt the steel, you just have to soften it. Secondly, we've been making steel for several thousand years with wood. How do you make something burn really hot? You get some bellows and you shove air in there. Okay, back to the show again. So getting back to the Great Fire of London, you can see that purpley thing apparently is water down there at the bottom, and that black thing is the wall of London, and there's some little gates there along the way. And the fire started there in the middle and sort of over the bottom right, kind of where where is this button? There, that one there is, and then kept on going. And it was a terrible thing to have happen, and they had to find somebody to blame. Luckily, the Second Anglo-French War was going on, or Anglo-Dutch War, and the French were allies with them, so therefore you had to find somebody who was French to blame. And so along comes Robert, not Hubert, but Hubert, thus proving he is French. And he was the excellent person to blame, because not only was he the wrong religion, he was the wrong country. A good start. If he'd had a wrong skin colour, that would have been even better. And so he then, after mild persuasion, he confessed to setting the fire in Westminster, and they were just about to convict him when they realised that there was a small problem in the court. They realised that there was a slight problem, which was that the fire had never reached Westminster at all. So over here you have where the fire was, and moving over to there, down over there, that is where Westminster is, over there where the fire never even got to. But on the other hand, he was French and he was a Catholic. So then they went to the next stage and convinced him to confess to a different crime, which was setting the fire in Pudding Lane by throwing grenades through the bakery window. By the way, bakeries have big ovens in them. Bit of a hint there to where we're heading. Now, he confessed this, but there were a few minor problems. The next problem was that because he had had a difficult birth, he had a condition called shoulder dystocia when he was born, and he couldn't throw anything. The second problem was that the bakery had no windows. minor problem. There was another problem, which was that he called as a witness in his favour a captain of a ship, an English sea captain, not a French one, who said, oh yeah, when the fire started, we were at sea. We'd been at sea for 2 days when the fire started. He was nowhere near the fire started. But on the other hand, there was another factor against him, which was that on the jury of 12 honest people, 3 of them were the bakers. And combining the fact that there was a bit of a tilted jury and the fact that he was the wrong religion and the wrong country, they killed him. Nothing personal, just business. It's the way these things happen. So you're thinking, how do we get around this? Here is the answer, which Alenta, I think it was mentioned here, which is Critical Thinking, Essay on Criticism by Alexander Pope. Now, who has heard the phrase, a little learning is a dangerous thing? Okay, I have heard that too. I had not heard the second line, and here it comes. Drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. Who's heard that line? I'd never heard it before, a few of you. Okay, and then it goes, so the Pierian spring was where you'd go to this place where they were running some sort of religious place, and you'd give them money and they'd let you breathe the gases coming out of the ground, and you'd fall unconscious, and if you didn't die, then you'd have great hallucinations, and then that would guide you for the rest of your life, and you'd give them some money. Regular. Okay, so drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. The Pierian spring was, okay, a bit of background here, Iceland up there, United Kingdom here, Scandinavia up here, heading down into Europe, Mediterranean. We're going over to that corner there, Greece, Macedonia, and Pieria was a place where this would actually happen. You'd pay money and you'd get to drink the stuff. Okay, drink deep or do not have anything at all of the Pierian spring. Their shallow drafts intoxicate the brain. So if you get a little tiny bit of knowledge, and think of Dunning-Kruger. If you get a little knowledge, you think, wow, I know everything about this. Shallow drafts intoxicate the brain, but drinking deep largely sobers us again. And that's a good lesson to run with. Richard Feynman had a variation on that. Richard Feynman, brilliant scientist, misogynist, but brilliant scientist. And he said, science is a way to not get fooled. And science is not a bunch of facts. That's an encyclopedia. Science is a way to look at the world and try to understand what's going on. So science can be a way to not get fooled because science is self-correcting. And so we end up with that concept that luckily was said in the introduction here, critical thinking, which is the last line of defense. So let's just look at some examples of science, like astronomy, pseudoscience, which is astrology, and science denial, which is the flat earth and the firmament theory. So who's familiar with the firmament version of the flat earth theory? Okay, firstly, who's familiar with the flat earth theory? Okay, you all heard that one. Who's familiar with the firmament version? Okay, the firmament version is that God, 5,000 years ago when the earth was created apparently, put a firmament over the earth which changes colour for day and night, and it's exactly at 200 kilometres up. A little diversion here. Why did God choose a unit that would not be invented for 4,800 years after he had created the earth to be an exact multiple of? Okay, getting back to the show again. And so when rockets go up, they hit this firmament, they blow up, and all these people who try to launch rockets when they don't know about it or they don't believe it, they have their rockets blow up. And all of the Starlink satellites and all the other satellites, the satellites that actually work, and we have proof of it on a day-to-day basis, they are actually held up by balloons. Because they want us to, not believe in this, not know the exact truth. And all those things in the sky, for example, the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, they are not physical objects, according to the firmament theory, but they are, and here's a technical word, luminaries. They're just light bulbs. And all of the astronomers, going back 4 centuries, and then even before that, they have all been in the pay of Big Globe, the organisation that sells globes of the earth. And so whenever people join astronomy, they're told, look, you have to sign the oath, this is part of the deal, there's no such thing as that you can see out there. And all these people, the astronomers who are handing in information about things that they're finding out there, like the JWST, etc., they're all part of Big Globe. Okay, getting back out of where we were. So that was flat earth. So in the science, you try to minimise the bias, whereas in pseudoscience, they definitely want to believe whereas in denial they definitely do not want to believe. And then in science they will objectively evaluate the evidence, whereas in pseudoscience they've got an incredibly low standard of evidence. My astrologist said that next year I'd be, a few years ago, that next year would be unhappy, and I lost my phone. That proves it. Okay, right. Whereas over here, impossibly high standard evidence, no matter what you tell them, they won't go for it. As an example of how science is self-correcting, I came across this paper a few weeks ago. You're all familiar with forensic evidence, blah, 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 DNA, and it turns out that forensic evidence can falsely link people to crime scenes if their genetic diversity is low. So you might pick the example of the people known as the Ashkenazi Jews, and they've got various diseases running through them like Tay-Sachs, blah, 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 blah. The point is, if you're dealing with a population that has a low genetic diversity, you can end up falsely accusing somebody. So this is an example of where science is now saying, okay, what genetic group do you belong to, blah, 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 okay, and then they work things out. So critical thinking, the last line of defense, it's a good thing. So in science, you get some data and you come to a conclusion, where in science denial and pseudoscience, you just cherry pick like crazy. You pick out whatever you want to give you the data. And then when you get new data, you come to a new conclusion in real science, as in the case of the forensic scientists, whereas here they're very reluctant to change in pseudoscience and science denial, and they see any effort to give them new information as proof that you are part of the conspiracy theory. And then here, so with a good example of that was the evidence for poor old Robert Hubert was virtually zero, but still he got executed. And then finally, it says down here at the bottom, they have checks and balances for peer review, whereas in the other two, any criticism, any trying to bring enlightenment to them or truth is bad. So let's just drift off into something else. So we've gone through looking at things one way, and I've got 23 minutes to go. So let's look at things another way. Now, this is how I looked last week. It's been a bad week. This is me in part of my career in New Guinea. I'm the one on the left. I ended up smoking so much stuff that I not only did I see Jesus, I actually thought I was Jesus. My vision was so blurred. And I don't know, for you people today, you have got no idea how easy it is to take drugs. Back then, mate, look at the size of the vaping machine we had. I mean, it was just so difficult. It was just so easy. So sometimes I had so much dope I thought I had struck a higher level of intelligence. And I didn't know it, but I was beginning to think about the concept of artificial intelligence, which is a weird term that was invented on the 18th of June 1956. Which, by the way, the 18th of June is International Picnic Day. And does that mean we should change it slightly to International Panic Day, because that was when AI was invented? No, I wouldn't panic yet. One of the big people there was John McCarthy, and he set up something called, on that day, the actual event happened, the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence. They invented that phrase for that conference, as opposed to human thinking, because what they really wanted was to be able to make machines that could think like humans. And they thought that they'd have it all settled by the end of that weekend, back in 1956. Man, we're just so close to nowhere. They had geniuses there like Shannon, who is one of the gods of information. And there are good sides to the AI. There was a case of a woman scientist who had breast cancer, and it was a bit rocky, but she came good in the end with all of the treatments, and she lived and didn't die, which is always a good outcome. And then she went back to the radiologist who had passed her, had said, this x-ray shows signs of breast cancer, and she said, let's get my previous x-ray and see if you can see signs of breast cancer there. And the radiologist went looking and said, you know what? I think I'm seeing something. And so based on her work with that radiologist, they've developed an AI that can pick up breast cancer up to 5 years earlier. up to 5 years earlier. Here's the official paper, interpretal mammography-based deep learning model for 1 to 5 year breast cancer risk prediction. So with regard to breast cancer, for the guys who don't really appreciate it, 1 in 8 women will get it and 1 in 40 will die of it. But here, by finding when it was so much earlier before it had a chance to spread, there could be such a much better outcome. On the other hand, there are some cartoon characters who may be at risk. But on the other...
Good news, donkey. I'm in remission.
Okay, happy ending. So that was a good example of AI helping Shrek out of it. Now, bad use of it is in some of the images that you see. So you might see this family in a car and you're thinking, okay, why is the driver in the back seat and why is her arm growing out of the middle of her chest? Why has this kid got their arm pointing the wrong way? And I'm not really into that sort of kind of car. This is more what I'm into. That was a hot lap, and here you see somebody on the rotor or the, what do you call it, the centrifuge. So they're stuck against the wall. The floor is falling away from them because it's spinning so fast, they're stuck against the wall, and it was that centrifugal force that was forcing me against the side of the car. Now, if there are any real physicists listening, they'll say, Karl, for God's sakes, it's not centrifugal, it's centripetal. I'm not going to go into that. You're right, I'm wrong, but I'm just speaking to a different audience. And I was really bracing myself when I was doing that hot lap with Winty, and I even though bracing myself, I couldn't stop myself. I was just thrown against the side of the car each time, whereas I looked at him and he wasn't. He had part of their training to being race drivers, you've got to have really strong core muscles and very strong neck muscles. Then AI, so but getting away from the cars, because the trouble with that other car, mate, it didn't have enough grunt to pull your granny off a dunny, whereas this car, it accelerates, mate, it pushes you right back. This photo here has been put out by a kind of ultra-white, ultra-nationalist group, and on one hand, this guy's got 2 forearms, and this guy is proving he's really Australian by having a hand growing out of the middle of his chest. Now, there are different videos around. AI has been used badly on me, and here comes the video explaining it for you.
With a new discovery that deep cleans blood vessels in 2 minutes a day. Take just one of these capsules to immediately remove all plaque and cure your high blood pressure and cholesterol. This natural cure is essential for anyone over the age of 45. Enjoy your new heart health this week by clicking on the Learn More button below.
Learn More is spelled lean, and that whole thing was a whole gibberish sciencey word salad with a weird speech. Now, here's a picture of me, which the forces of evil via Facebook, have manipulated with the words and slightly on the images, but not very well. This is an early AI, which was using my image to sell dodgy products. And what that means is that I can be now deregistered as a medical doctor because my image has been associated with a commercial product. And I've asked Facebook to take it down. Okay, moving right along. So here I am, and here we go. What a look, man.
My name is Karl, and at my 76, I feel myself like 25 years old, man. That's because I clean my vessels with this natural remedy. Believe me or not, I guarantee what you'll feel much better from first spoon. Link below and check my new interview.
A lot of gibberish. What is this spoon thing? I've got no idea where they're coming up. So earlier this year, a high quality version was released in March. And so in this first video, we're going to have somebody saying some words, English, Portuguese speaker, saying some words to try to train the AI. Okay, here we go. And they're going to train the AI.
As a bilingual individual, fluent in both English and Portuguese, I'm contributing my voice to the LiveVox project. This recording is intended to assist non-verbal individuals in expressing themselves more fully, while preserving the nuances of both languages.
Intended to help non-verbal individuals in speaking. No, it's there to help people make fake ads. So he said a bunch of words in 16 seconds. In the next clip, he'll say a bunch of words, and many of them were not said by him. They have been generated de novo inside the artificial intelligence, and it's pretty good, and you can get this for free.
Excuse me, can I get your attention? Thank you for your help. Can we watch a movie tonight? Could you please help me find my glasses? Thank you for your understanding. It means a lot to me.
Now, if you've done a salesmanship course, you'll notice that he's gone down the yes pathway. So if you want to convince somebody to buy something they don't want, you say, oh, good day, how you going? You feeling all right? And they'll say yes. You say, oh, would you like to sit down? And they say yes. So would you like a glass of water? Yes. And you keep on asking them increasingly more involved questions to which they say yes. Oh, could you pass us the jumper on that chair? So now they have to do something and say yes at the same time. So I think, but I have no proof, that shows the true intention of this to be used in advertising. There have been other cases of my voice. So I did this in 10 minutes. Here we go.
All stone gargoyles are alive, and I trap them in a washing basket and make them run on treadmills for eco-power.
Every single day I swallow three $2 coins just in case.
Every single day I swallow three $2 coins just in case I need lolly money. Like, all he knows this patent for a dog catapult. I have a secret second face on the bottom of my right foot. Well, legally birds are allowed to vote, but they are simply too lazy.
Did my voice sound vaguely real? Vaguely? And that was just the first version. If you ask it over and over, you get different versions. You pick one that sounds like the person, and that was just 10 minutes work. So over here, we have the case now. We're just a little bit out of sync, so I'll just get this back up to date again. Okay, there we go. And here we are. So, headline. Finance worker at global firm conned into transferring $38 million. That happened in Hong Kong earlier this year when the person was invited into a fake Zoom call where he was the only person who was actually a person, and the other three entities on the screen were totally manufactured in vision and in voice. They were totally fake. And as a result, he transferred $38 million. And you got a bit of a hint of this. Do you remember the cat lawyer early on in COVID? The cat lawyer? Here we go.
I believe you have a filter turned on in the regular setting. You might want to
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is. I don't know how to remove it. I'm not my assistant who's trying to. I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I'm pretty confident that that person is a cat. I know a cat when I see one. But now it's gone even better, if you like the word better. And on this article in August this year, you can get a single photograph of another human, a single photo, and use the free software and apply it, and then you suddenly look like J.D. Vance, the future Vice President of the United States. Or perhaps you want to look like Hugh Grant. And notice that the hair changes a little bit, and they get a little bit greyer as they get older. Ah, a man of high moral standards, thank God. Okay, Zuckerberg. And then we'll finish off with my hero, George Clooney. And see, by the way, trying to have the four of them at a dinner party would just be such a mess. Let's not go any further. So getting back to the videos again, in this particular video here, one of them, they said at the bottom that your health is 90% dependent on your blood vessels. Well, I mean, my only knowledge in this area was that I was a medical doctor for several years, not actually a naturopath or anything, but I kind of thought that your health, firstly, that your health was 100% dependent on your blood vessels. If you didn't have any blood vessels, you were in big trouble. And finally, I didn't know that you had raspberries inside your blood vessels either. See how little I know? Okay. And then I've really made the big time now where I've hit Chemist Warehouse discount. And they've even, the good thing about some of those videos, at least they spelled my name correctly. Here they don't even spell it right. This appeared also, and the interesting thing is that all those things at the top, the words at the top, are not clickable. And by the way, I don't know I went searching, no government in the world has a Department of Health and Senior Care. It just simply doesn't exist. They've tried getting various celebrities, including Andrew Forrest, and there's a video that he speaks.
Now you will be richer than you ever imagined. I'm talking about life-changing money, and you won't believe how incredibly simple it is. You can make money in just 3 minutes.
And people have suffered as a result of that. So I'm not anywhere on that list. Okay. So I'm okay. So they've gone for celebrities. So one woman lost $670,000 following the advice of this fake person and transferred the money via various bank accounts. In my case, I'm fairly not very high celebrity status, so I'm down in the $100 market. And so there's a whole bunch of products that are offered with my name on them. And the trick is that they charge you $100 a bottle using my good name and reputation, but they then cheat you by charging you $300, and then that company goes out of business and another one pops up. So they never get developed and you lose your money. So we did contact Facebook many times over at many levels, and what they said was that it doesn't go against their advertising standards. I think their advertising standard is, do you have enough money to pay for an ad? And that's it. Why? Well, now we're coming to the big finish. So the hypothesis or conjecture I'm giving you is that our world has been, the path of our culture has been diverted by a few things. With regard to global warming, we have the situation where the fossil fuel companies knew what they were doing in 1982 and kept on doing it. And in addition to, since 1990, putting half the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that has been added, the levels have doubled since then. They've increased from the baseline in 1750 today. Half was put before 1990, half after 1990. And in addition to all the evil things they're doing, they're also getting 7 cents out of every dollar you earn as a subsidy. So if you work at Macca's, you're giving 7 cents to the fossil fuel companies. So that's one societal thing that has interfered with the free running of the world and the society. The other thing is the growth of advertising, and advertising has led, I'm fairly convinced, to this massive disinformation, changing of world politics, blah, blah, blah. I will now give you a brief hypothesis, then finish. So it's related to a book I read called The System by James Ball. And we talk about advertising. Now, you might not know this, but every single time you click on an ad, all of your information is offered to between 300 and 500 advertisers around the world who, in 1/100th of a second, have bid for the right to show pictures on the next web page you go to. All of your data, they will offer between 1 and 5 cents, or maybe 20 cents if you're a wealthy individual. They'll offer between 1 and 5 cents for the right to show you the ads on the next page you go to. And where do they get the data from to decide how much to offer for you? They go to your Google data doc. So I don't know if any of you go on searching through the 14 gigabytes of data, but many people do it as a way to help them around tax time because they don't bother keeping receipts. Where was I on the 14th of June? Oh, I went to that shop. Oh, then I went and bought that sausage roll. And then I went and bought a meat pie. Oh, my God. And then I took a taxi here. And it's all there. Everything you've done, travelling along. And then they decide for that 1 to 5 cents what ads will appear on the next homepage that you go to. And the more you click, the more money they make. And they do not care why you click. So if I've seen one pop up saying, life discovered on Mars. And I thought, nah. But I clicked on it anyway. And it turned out to be, it wasn't true, but the point was they had made 1 to 5 cents. Who is they? Well, let's just run into who they are. So think about Google as a company, and they do make some products, and this is from the book, The System by James Ball, and the figures are for the last quarter of 2018. Out of $39 billion, they made $32 billion of advertising. And the fact that the whole disinformation thing is spreading like crazy and disrupting the path of our society is irrelevant because they're making money. Facebook, for me, this was a big surprise. Facebook, out of 16.9 billion, they made 16.6 of advertising. Facebook is an advertising company. That's all it is. It started off rating women on a very unfair scale and then went downhill. Right? And then even Amazon, which basically sells you stuff, it makes $3.4 billion a quarter. And I know what you're thinking. 3.4 billion isn't much, but 3.4 billion here, 3.4 billion, it begins to add up into real money. You know, forget the cost of living crisis. So fake news spreads much faster. How's our timing going? 5 minutes. Spreads 6 times faster because you need this reflex to warn you of danger. So you might see this rustling in the undergrowth, and then you're thinking, oh, it could be a lion. And that's the same reflex that gets you online to go spending money on boner pills and looking at pictures of pigs with human teeth. I don't know why people do that. And it's spread by AI algorithms, and you cannot win because there's a whole lot of people who know everything about you and what you like, and it's you with your single brain against them. And they get the money. I think I might just, with Facebook Meta, just finishing on this. They've got 11 million followers in Australia, and the revenue that they make each year is $5 billion. Oh, by the way, they do have the option, like all the fossil fuel companies, of paying tax in Australia, but they have chosen not to exercise this option. Now, I've done some investigative research of my own, and I've found that most of the money is stored in offshore tax-free places like the Cayman Islands. My plan, and I hope that we can enrol everybody in this, is that we convince the Australian military to invade the Cayman Islands and take all our money back. It's a long-term plan. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later. So out of that $5 billion, the tax that they pay in Australia is zero, and by an amazing coincidence, that is roughly the amount of money that was robbed from Australians in scams last year. Now, I'm just going to stop right here, and then can we bring the lights up and go for question and answer? How many minutes we got there? 3 minutes 49. So that'll make Alanda happy, because that way she won't have to yell at me for being late. Yeah, so I wrote too much material. Any questions from the audience? There's a microphone person, and the game is at the back of the room, and the game is to try to make that person run from one corner of the room to the other. And by the way, the answer to the first question is my wife makes my shirts with a 4-thread overlocker and differential feed, and it takes us 3 hours. Next question. Okay, there's no second question. We have a question. We love you to pieces. We love you twice as much as the second questioner.
A bit more about Facebook harvesting data. Is it true that Facebook actually listens to conversations in the room? Because I can go back several times where I've remarked to my wife that we had to put the Bentley in for servicing, and I'm getting a bit tired of it, and suddenly I'm showered with ads for new Bentleys.
Yes and no. On one hand, it'd be too much for people to look at, and Brian Dunning on the Skeptoid, he talks about the pros and cons of this. On the other hand, I have several, like you have, anecdotes. And remember, the plural of anecdote is anecdotes, not data, but this one is very hard. 2 of my colleagues, there's somebody stretching up there, is that to get off the stage? No, they're just stretching. Okay, right. 2 of my colleagues, my friends, they got a dog. The dog's old. It needs dental surgery, but it's going to die soon, but needs dental surgery. And at the dinner table, for 2 nights, they discussed this. At no stage did either of them look online to look at dental surgery. On day 3, they both started getting ads for dental surgery. In one of my previous books, I've written about what we know one case for sure where they listen in on you. I think it was in Alabama or Arizona. There was some state in the USA where some males got together to watch a football match, and they got drunk, and in the morning one of them was found dead, drunk, floating in the spa, face down, dead. And there was a suspicion of foul play, and that state in the USA forced, I think it was Amazon, to open up their Alexa files, and there was an Alexa box in another room, and they listened to the conversation, which had happened about 9 months earlier, and they found that it wasn't foul play, it was just men being stupid and drunk. We have that case definitely proving that it listens to you. Question over here. Thank you, yes?
Yes, surely the best proof against the flat earth people is, of course, the fact that the earth is hollow.
I cannot comment because part of my contract with Big Globe doesn't allow me to discuss this in public arenas. Another one? No. Okay, look, we'll make it easy for you. We've got an early finish. Look, thank you so much. Now, we've got one more, and then we're going to do a handover for some students and stuff, of which... Okay, right. So I'll answer quickly while staying online with the camera. Hello, camera.
Yeah, with regards to advertising, what's the difference between this kind of advertising revenue compared to newspapers that used to have advertising and rely on it for their survival?
Because we've gone from broadcasting to narrowcasting and optimisation. So when I was involved with setting up the first Australian cable TV network in Nimbin in 1972, I had a cosmic realisation. Back then, media information was broadcast. A small number of people sent the information one way out to a large group. And what we were doing in Nimbin, we had a kilometre of cable and a whole bunch of video cameras. We were having two-way narrowcasting, where people could talk individually to small audiences, in our case 3 or 4 people, but with social media, 100, 1,000, 100,000, 1 million, which is small compared to the world, but you end up with these different rabbit holes of knowledge, and they're self-reinforcing. So that's the difference between the lies, and you're dead right, the lies have been told all the way through history. And by the way, what I've got is a project where I'm trying to develop an AI chatbot based on the psychology of the person who's gone down the rabbit hole, specifically the rabbit hole of climate change, to help try to bring them back. This is a big ask. We know that it kind of works. We're going to try and make it better. And I should hand over now. And we will be doing something with introducing some students. I know nothing of this, so maybe I should hand over the microphone to somebody who does. Right, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for knowing what I'm supposed to do next. Thank you.